Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to take a deep dive into a topic that's, well, it's pretty mind-blowing to be honest. 6th generation aircraft.
Yeah.
We're talking the future of air combat. And we've got some incredible source material to guide us today. Excerpts from this in-depth analysis. It's called, get this, Aviones de 6th Generación, el futuro de la superioridad aérea.
The future of air superiority.
Exactly.
It's dense.
Yeah.
But man, is it fascinating.
Right. It's packed with insights. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was this idea, a complete paradigm shift, moving away from this focus on individual aircraft superiority to a network-centric approach. It's almost like these planes are, nodes in a giant web or something.
Yeah, it's a pretty radical shift. The analysis really emphasizes this idea of moving beyond just building a better plane. It's about creating a system where 6th generation aircraft are like a central hub, integrating with everything, satellites, ground troops, you name it.
So it's less about like the lone wolf fighter ace and more about a coordinated pack of super advanced flying machines.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. But before we get too deep into the weeds, I think it might be helpful to do a quick flyby through fighter jet history. Just to set the stage a bit, especially when we're talking about tech that seems like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, good idea.
So where should we start? Back in the biplane era.
Well, we could, but maybe let's jump ahead to World War II. That's when the first generation of jet fighters really emerged. Think about the Messerschmitt Me 262. It was revolutionary. Jet propulsion, incredible speed for its time.
Oh yeah, the Me 262. It always looks so futuristic, like something out of a comic book. It really paved the way for everything that came after.
Absolutely. And then, as technology advanced, we saw the emergence of radar and guided missiles, which led to the second generation of fighters in the 1950s. Planes like the F-104 Starfighter, known for its speed, but also its, let's say, challenging handling.
Yeah, the Starfighter. A classic case of pushing the boundaries a bit too far.
Right.
It's a good reminder that progress isn't always a smooth ride.
Definitely not. But each generation learns from the previous one. And in the 1960s, we got the third generation, with a focus on maneuverability and versatility. Planes like the F-4 Phantom II could handle both air-to-air and air-to-ground combat.
A real workhorse.
Yeah, exactly.
Then in the 70s, the fourth generation arrived, with advanced fly-by-wire systems and even better sensors. Think the F-15 Eagle, the Su-27 Flanker, designed for air superiority beyond visual range combat.
Right, and that set the stage for the fifth generation, which brought us stealth technology, sensor fusion, and the beginnings of network connectivity. The F-22 Raptor, the F-35 Lightning II, these were game changers.
Stealth fighters. It was like suddenly being fast or maneuverable wasn't enough. You had to be invisible, a ghost in the sky. And now here we are talking about the 6th generation.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. And you mentioned earlier that this is more than just an incremental upgrade. The source material calls it a paradigm shift. So what exactly makes 6th generation aircraft so fundamentally different?
Well, I think the key is that word, system. Previous generations focused on improving specific capabilities, speed, maneuverability, stealth, But 6th generation aircraft are about integrating all those advancements into a holistic, interconnected system. It's about moving beyond the platform itself and thinking about the entire battle space.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here. It's not just about the individual aircraft being amazing. It's about how they fit into a larger, more complex network of systems, almost like they're, nodes in a giant web.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
So these 6th generation aircraft are like the central nervous system of a future battlefield.
You got it.
Wow.
Bro.
So let's break it down. What are some of the key characteristics that make these planes so game-changing? What did the analysts in the report highlight as truly revolutionary?
Well, let's start with stealth. 5th-gen aircraft like the F-22 and F-35 were a huge leap forward. But 6th-gen stealth aims to be even more comprehensive. The report calls it multispectral invisibility.
Multispectral invisibility. That sounds like something out of Star Trek. What does that even mean?
Well, it means that these aircrafts are designed to be invisible, not just to radar, but also to infrared, acoustic, even optical sensors.
Hold on, you're saying they could be invisible to the naked eye?
Potentially, yes.
That's insane. Okay, so forget dodging radar. We're talking about blending into the background across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. That's next level stuff.
Right.
But wait, there's more, right? Because the report also mentions AI.
Oh, yeah.
AI as a core component of 6th gen aircraft.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting. It's not just autopilot or basic flight assistance. We're talking about AI integrated into almost every aspect of the aircraft, from analyzing sensor data to making tactical decisions, and potentially even controlling swarms of drones.
Wait, hold up. Drones leading other drones. That's giving you some serious sci-fi vibes. Are we talking about Skynet levels of autonomy here?
Not quite Skynet, but the level of autonomy being discussed is definitely significant. Think of it like this. The AI acts as a co-pilot, handling complex tasks and allowing the human pilot to focus on the big picture.
Okay, so these are basically flying supercomputers with wings and weapons.
Pretty much.
And let's not forget about that whole network-centric thing we talked about earlier. It's not just about the plane itself, it's about how it connects to a larger system.
Exactly. 6th-generation aircraft are designed to be nodes in a vast, interconnected battle space. They can seamlessly share information with satellites, ground troops, naval vessels, everything.
So imagine this, a 6th-generation fighter, cloaked from enemy sensors, zipping through the sky at this supersonic speed, while simultaneously directing a swarm of drones and sharing real-time intelligence with allies across land, sea, and even space.
That's the vision.
It's mind-blowing. But we haven't even talked about the engines yet.
Oh, right, the engine.
Pretty important for, flying.
Oh, yeah.
So what's so special about the engines on these 6th-gen jets?
You've probably heard of variable cycle engines. These engines can seamlessly switch between different modes of operation, optimizing for either high speed or fuel efficiency, depending on the mission.
So you can have your supersonic cake and eat it too.
Precisely.
That's some seriously clever engineering. But let's be real, we can't talk about fighter jets without talking about, the firepower.
Of course not.
What kind of weapons are we talking about with these 6th-generation aircraft?
Well, this is where things get really interesting and potentially a bit scary. We're talking about weapon systems that sound like they're straight out of science fiction. For example, the report mentions directed energy weapons, lasers capable of shooting down missiles or even enemy aircraft.
Lasers? Seriously? I thought that was just a kid's fantasy.
It might have been once, but it's quickly becoming a reality.
Wow. What else?
Well, there are also hypersonic missiles, traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 5. Incredibly difficult to intercept.
Okay, so we've got invisible planes, drone swarms, laser beams, and hypersonic missiles. Is there anything these 6th-generation jets can't do?
Well, they're not invincible, but they are designed to be incredibly resilient, especially when it comes to electronic warfare.
Yes, the digital battlefield, where hacking and jamming are just as important as bombs and bullets.
Right. And the report emphasizes that 6th-generation aircraft are built to dominate in this domain. Advanced electronic warfare suites to jam enemy sensors, spoof their systems, and protect themselves from cyber attacks.
So they can dodge physical attacks and defend themselves in the digital realm.
That's the goal.
Like a whole other level of complexity. But this brings up an interesting point. We've been talking about all these amazing capabilities, but who's actually building these things? I imagine there's a global race going on to be the first to field these superfighters.
There definitely is. Several countries and consortiums are pushing the boundaries.
Okay, so who are the major players in this high-stakes game of aerial one-upmanship?
Well, first and foremost, there's the United States, with its Next Generation Air Dominance Program, or NGAD. They're aiming to replace the legendary F-22 Raptor.
Talk about pressure, following in the footsteps of an icon like the Raptor.
No kidding.
What else is out there?
Well, then we have Europe, a really interesting example of international collaboration. The Future Combat Air System, or FCAS. It's a joint project between France, Germany, and Spain.
Wow, a truly joint effort. So it's not just individual nations going it alone anymore.
Not necessarily. There's also the UK's Tempest program, focused on cutting-edge tech like adaptive cycle engines and advanced stealth.
The UK always has to be in the mix, right?
Of course. And what's interesting about the Tempest program is that it's open to international collaborations.
Yeah.
Italy and Japan have already joined, and there's potential for others to come on board.
So we've got competition and collaboration all mixed together.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic.
But what about China and Russia? I bet they're not just sitting on the sidelines.
You bet they're not. Both China and Russia are actively developing their own 6th-generation fighter programs, although details are, as you might expect, pretty scarce.
A little bit of mystery always adds to the intrigue.
For sure.
So we've got a real mix of established players and rising powers, all vying for dominance in the skies. This is getting intense, but I think it's time to shift gears a bit. We've talked about what these planes can do and who's building them, but now I want to get into the so what. How are these planes going to change the way wars are fought?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's one that military strategists around the world are grappling with.
So what are your thoughts? What are the big implications here?
Well, for one thing, I think we're likely to see a shift towards multi-domain dominance, meaning that air, space, and cyberspace will become even more tightly integrated. These aircraft will be able to operate seamlessly across all those domains, coordinating attacks, gathering intelligence, disrupting enemy operations on a scale we've never seen before.
So it's not just about controlling the skies anymore. It's about controlling the entire battle space.
Exactly.
And I imagine that kind of dominance would give the nations that possess these aircraft a significant strategic advantage.
Absolutely. It's potentially a game changer. But there's another aspect to consider: the potential for reducing human risk in warfare.
I see where you're going with this. With all this talk of AI and autonomy, it seems like we're moving toward a future where fewer human pilots will be needed.
That's right. And while there are certainly ethical considerations to be had, the potential benefits are clear. Taking human pilots out of harm's way, reducing casualties, potentially making warfare less destructive overall.
I can see how that would be appealing. But it raises questions about the future role of pilots. What will their job be if the planes are essentially flying themselves?
That's a question that's still being debated. Some believe that human pilots will become more like mission commanders, overseeing the operations of autonomous aircraft, making strategic decisions. Others believe that there will always be a need for human intuition and adaptability, even with the most advanced AI.
It's a fascinating and complex issue, but one thing is certain. The arrival of 6th-generation aircraft will force us to rethink the very nature of air combat and the role of humans in it.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the profound implications that technology has for society and the future of warfare.
I couldn't agree more. These aren't just cool new toys for militaries to play with. These are machines that have the potential to reshape the global landscape.
Okay, so we've covered the incredible capabilities of 6th-generation aircraft and the potential they hold for reshaping warfare. But let's be real, it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Yeah.
There have to be some downsides, some challenges, maybe even some ethical concerns about this technology. So what are some of the less glamorous aspects of this 6th-generation revolution?
Well, for starters, the cost. Developing and producing these aircraft is exorbitantly expensive. We're talking billions, if not trillions of dollars.
Wow.
And that means only a handful of nations will be able to afford them.
So this technology could potentially widen the gap between the haves and have-nots in the global military landscape.
Exactly. And that raises concerns about a potential arms race. As nations scramble to keep up, it could lead to increased global instability and even heighten the risk of conflict.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought. And then there's the technological complexity. We're talking about incredibly sophisticated systems,
Right.
reliant on a delicate interplay of hardware, software, and AI. What happens if something goes wrong?
That's a valid concern. There's always a risk of unforeseen glitches, software vulnerabilities, even outright system failures. And when you're dealing with machines this powerful, the consequences could be catastrophic.
It's a scary thought. And then there's the whole issue of AI dependence. We've talked about the benefits of autonomy. But are we really comfortable delegating life or death decisions to machines?
That's a question that goes beyond military strategy. It touches on fundamental questions about the nature of warfare and the role of humans in it.
It's a conversation we definitely need to be having as a society. But I think we might need a whole other episode just to unpack the implications of AI in warfare. For now, it's important to acknowledge that the development of 6th-generation aircraft isn't just about technological advancement. It's about grappling with complex questions about the future of warfare and our relationship with technology.
I couldn't agree more.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the history of fighter jets to the mind-blowing capabilities of 6th-generation aircraft and the challenges they present. But for this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. In a world where air combat is increasingly dominated by artificial intelligence, what does it even mean to be a fighter pilot? What role will humans play in the future of warfare? It's a question that doesn't have easy answers, but it's one we need to start thinking about now.
Absolutely. It's a question that'll keep a lot of people up at night, that's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. But hey, maybe it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, we've been talking about these incredible advancements, and they're primarily focused on, well, warfare.
Right.
But is there any chance some of this super advanced tech could trickle down into things, that regular folks like me might actually experience?
Oh, absolutely. History's full of examples where military advancements eventually find their way into the civilian world.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, GPS. For starters,
Oh, I never thought of that.
the internet, even jet engines themselves, all started as military technologies.
That's true. So what kind of civilian applications could we see with 6th-gen tech? I'm already picturing myself zipping around in a flying car, powered by a variable cycle engine.
Flying cars might be a bit further down the road.
Yeah.
But there are more immediate possibilities. For instance, those advanced variable cycle engines could be adapted for commercial airliners.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine traveling at supersonic speeds, but with incredible fuel efficiency.
So, transatlantic flights in just a couple of hours. Sign me up. No more jet lag, no more spending half a day crammed into an economy seat. But honestly, I'm even more intrigued by the safety improvements.
Yeah.
What did the report have to say about that?
Well, they highlighted how the advanced sensors and AI systems developed for 6th-gen aircraft could lead to much safer commercial aviation.
That's great news.
Imagine air travel that's even safer and more reliable than it is today.
Okay, now you're talking. Safer, faster air travel. That's something everyone can get behind. But I gotta ask, how does space exploration fit into all of this? Because I can't imagine these 6th-gen fighters are actually going to be dogfighting in orbit.
No, not quite. But the report does mention the potential for these technologies to advance space exploration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, many of the breakthroughs, particularly in propulsion and material science, have direct applications for spacecraft. Remember those variable cycle engines we talked about?
Yeah.
They could be a key enabling technology for more efficient and powerful spacecraft.
So maybe not dogfighting in space, but definitely pushing the boundaries of what's possible in terms of exploring the cosmos. That's pretty exciting.
It is. It just goes to show that these advancements can benefit humanity in so many ways.
It's a good reminder that innovation can have positive impacts, even when it emerges from a military context. But with all this talk about groundbreaking technology, I think it's important to acknowledge just how rapidly this field is evolving.
Yeah.
It seems like every day there's a new breakthrough or announcement about some mind-blowing advancement.
It's true. The pace of innovation is incredible. It's happening right now, in real time.
So let's take a look at the global landscape, the key players in this 6th-generation race.
Okay.
What stands out to you?
Well, the United States and their NGAD program are definitely leading the charge. They're aiming to develop a successor to the F-22 Raptor, pushing the boundaries even further.
It sounds almost like the Manhattan Project of fighter jets.
Yeah, kind of.
But the U.S. isn't the only one with big ambitions. What about those European collaborative projects? How are they shaping up?
Europe is taking a really interesting approach with the FCAS and Tempest programs. They're really emphasizing cooperation and interoperability, pooling resources and expertise.
It's like a technological version of the European Union.
Exactly.
Do you think this collaborative approach can compete with the U.S.?
It's hard to say. It has its advantages and disadvantages. Ultimately, I think both approaches have the potential to be successful.
Interesting. So it's a bit of a technological tug of war.
You could say that.
But what about the wild cards, China and Russia?
Well, they're keeping their cards close to the vest. Details are scarce, as always. But based on what we've seen and their overall military ambitions, it's clear they're aiming to be major players in this new era.
So we've got open collaboration, fierce competition, and a healthy dose of mystery. Sounds like a recipe for a truly fascinating technological race.
It certainly is.
But I think there's one more piece of this puzzle we need to examine. What happens to the very idea of air combat when we start talking about removing human pilots from the equation?
Yes. The rise of unmanned combat, drone swarms, AI pilots, the possibility that the future of air warfare might look completely different.
It's a topic that's both thrilling and a little unsettling, and one that deserves its own deep dive.
Absolutely.
So buckle up, everyone, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore the uncharted territory of air combat beyond human pilots. It's a future that's closer than you might think. All right, so we're back, and things are about to get really interesting.
Yeah, we're going deep on this one.
We've been talking about the future of air combat, these incredible 6th-generation aircraft. But now let's talk about a future where, well, there might not be any pilots at all.
It's a pretty wild concept, right?
It is. I mean, we think of fighter pilots, we picture those Top Gun types, nerves of steel, lightning-fast reflexes. But what happens when the pilot is a computer? Is it even still a pilot at that point?
It really makes you question the whole definition, doesn't it?
It does. So paint me a picture. What might a pilotless future actually look like?
Well, one scenario that gets a lot of attention is the idea of drone swarms.
Drone swarms, like a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, imagine dozens, maybe even hundreds, small, highly maneuverable drones, all equipped with advanced sensors and weapons, operating as a coordinated unit.
So like a swarm of robotic bees, but with missiles.
Pretty much.
That's both amazing and terrifying.
It's a powerful concept, no doubt. They could overwhelm enemy defenses, conduct reconnaissance, carry out targeted strikes with incredible precision.
But wouldn't that be incredibly risky? I mean, what if the AI malfunctions or makes a bad decision?
That's the big question, of course. Ensuring that these systems are not only intelligent, but reliable and ethical, that's the real challenge.
So it's not just about building smart drones, it's about building drones that can make the right call, even in the heat of battle.
Exactly.
That seems like a tall order.
It is. And it highlights the difficulty of creating truly autonomous weapons. Human oversight will likely remain crucial, at least for the foreseeable future.
So no Skynet scenario just yet.
Not quite.
Okay, that's good to know. But if humans are still involved, how will their role change? I mean, what does a pilot do if the plane is flying itself?
Well, think of it more like a mission commander,
Okay.
overseeing the operations of multiple autonomous aircraft from a safe distance.
So less hands-on flying, more strategic decision-making.
Exactly. Monitoring the situation, making adjustments as needed, intervening only when absolutely necessary.
It sounds like the pilot's job is getting a whole lot more complex.
It is, demanding new skills, new training, a whole new mindset.
But what about the traditional manned aircraft? Do they even have a place in this future? I mean, if we've got drone swarms and AI pilots.
That's a good question. And there's no easy answer. Some experts believe that 6th-generation aircraft will be the last generation of manned fighters. They argue that unmanned systems are simply more efficient.
But others disagree.
Right. They say the human intuition and judgment will always be valuable, maybe even essential, especially in complex situations that might confuse even the smartest AI.
I guess it depends on the specific situation.
Exactly.
So manned aircraft might not disappear entirely, but their role will likely change.
That seems likely.
Okay, so we've got drone swarms, AI pilots, human mission commanders, but this is all happening within a larger context, right? What are the geopolitical implications of all this? Are we looking at a new kind of arms race?
I think that's a very real possibility.
In what way?
Well, the development of these technologies will definitely shift the balance of power.
Okay.
It could intensify competition between major powers.
The U.S., China, Russia.
Exactly.
Right.
Increased military spending, a proliferation of advanced weapons, a heightened risk of conflict, especially in key regions.
And it's not just about the big players, right?
Right.
This technology could also empower smaller nations, even non-state actors, give them capabilities they never had before.
Exactly. You could level the playing field in some ways, make things more unpredictable, more volatile.
So the old rules of warfare are being rewritten.
It seems that way.
But it's not just about the potential for conflict, is it?
No, it's not.
There are huge ethical and moral questions here.
Absolutely.
What are some of the big ones?
Well, should we delegate life or death decisions to machines? What happens to human judgment, to accountability on the battlefield? These are questions we need to answer before this technology gets even more advanced.
It's a lot to consider. But as we've seen throughout this whole deep dive, technology isn't good or evil in itself. It's how we choose to use it, develop it, govern it.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with one final thought. In a world where AI is playing a bigger and bigger role, where the skies are filled with unmanned aircraft, what does it mean to be human? What role will we play in this future? What kind of world do we want to create?
Those are the questions we should all be asking ourselves.
Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we build together.
Well said.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of air combat. A future filled with incredible possibilities, daunting challenges, and some really big questions.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
Till next time.